Charity Commission believes that trustees generally are doing a very, very good job in the country. They even go so far as to say that they think that charity trustees are not anxious about their responsibilities. I guess that's not until they come to one of our briefings when trustees do go over being very anxious, because we want to draw your attention to some of the risks, some of the problems, and offer you some solutions. Having said that Charity Commission is very supportive of trustees, have a look at this. There is no room for complacency about the state of trusteeship. Trustees do not reflect the communities that charities serve. They are disproportionately older, highly educated and white. Men outnumber women by 2 to 1, and 3/4 earn above the national median household income. That's a Charity Commission. Is that a little harsh? Is that harsh for Norfolk? Now, one size doesn't fit all. Each charity is its own size, whether it's going to be spoon picking who it wants to be a trustee, looking for qualities they have on their board. Or do smaller charities look for somebody with a pulse? And there's some nodding heads. Do you think this is harsh for Norfolk? Paul, what do you think? Is it harsh?
Probably true.
Looking around the room, there's no older people here. It's all young people in the room, Paul, I know. But it's a danger, and it's a problem in recruiting trustees, because trustees are the lifeblood of all charities. It's estimated that the value that trustees put into charities each year is about £3.5 billion. £3.5 billion. Don't forget, trustees are all volunteers. Massive input. They set the scene. They take responsibility. But they set the scene, and it's their job to deliver on the mission that the charity has. So I think the Charity Commission is a little harsh, but the reality is that you have to adapt to the surroundings. Norfolk is not the most diverse of counties anyway, but each charity has to look at what it can bring the diversity to its board. A little bit of a health check for 2019 and the things really that we're going to be talking about today, some of the agenda. The last time I spoke at a group of people like yourselves from charities, I got some criticism about comparing charities with business on the basis that you have well-run charities, you have badly run charities. You also have well-run businesses and badly run businesses. So it's not an insult, it's not intended to offend anybody by talking about business. It's more about commerciality. It's more about, even though you're not for profit, the reality is you have to make a profit, however we describe that profit, because you need to be able to pay salaries, pay electricity bills. And whether you talk about it as being commercial, business-like, the reality is that you guys are in competition with national charities that do think about this, that are commercial, that do see themselves as a business. But if anybody in the room is offended by us talking about commerciality in businesses, I apologise now. Trust in charities is very, very important. That, again, financially, the way in which people donate to charities does reflect how they trust a charity. And local charities have been influenced by what's happening nationally. Don't forget that national charities have been taking an awful lot of criticism for some very, very bad procedures and processes. And it filters down to you guys locally. One of the things that I find, though, is quite staggering is that talking to a lot of smaller charities, there is a misunderstanding about the role of a trustee. The Charity Commission says, no, there's not. There's tons of resources available, people can come on training courses. You guys here today, which shows that happens. But if you talk to smaller charities, smaller organisations, there's a misconception about being a volunteer and turning up to committee meetings and being a trustee, and the responsibility that comes with it. And that's one of the things really that we want to emphasise is responsibility. Really difficult area. Education of trustees is very, very important. Again, you guys are here, that's part of education, part of you looking at what the options are, what things you need to be aware of, what legal aspects you need to think about in day-to-day running a charity. And you have got very heavy national competition. I'll give you an example. One of my clients recently made a will. Sorry, let me take a stage back. All my clients make wills, but what springs to mind is that the lady was fairly elderly, and she was in her will making provision for some national charities. She had been receiving tremendous help from a local charity. But when she came to do a will, she didn't want to do that, didn't want to recognise them in any way, because she was looking at the big nationals. If you do a Google search, and I have done a Google search on it, if you look at all of the charities there that are listed that are trying to get our money when we die, it is quite staggering. £2 to £3 billion a year the national charities are getting from legacies. Now, you guys as charities in the room may well be getting some of that through, but whether or not it's proactive or whether or not it's just happening. But the nationals are fully aware of it, and they are doing their utmost to maximise their income. Corporate responsibility is very, very important. Not just solicitors, but everybody in the business world is very aware of having to work with charities, wanting to work with charities. The good knock-on effect to the business as well as to the charity. So be aware of that, and don't be shy about using that if necessary, because it's a two-way street. Recruiting and retaining trustees is a big part of what you need to think about, because is it you want someone with a pulse? Is it you just want somebody to turn up? Is it you want someone with skills? But the lifeblood of your charity is your trustees. So it's getting the right trustees, trying to avoid one person taking a very influential role and just taking the rest along on a ride. In terms of challenges for small to medium businesses, the biggest one that I think is when a charity wants to start getting bigger, it then starts thinking about employing people. And this is exactly what Nicola's going to be talking about, is that there's almost an assumption that we can fiddle it a little way. They don't need to be an employee. They can kind of be self-employed. But we're a charity. We don't need to worry about employment law. No, that doesn't work. And that's one thing that holds people back. They're worried about how to start employing people. What are the repercussions? And Nicola's going to tell you all about that later on. Trust in charities is vital. The Charity Commission has commissioned research into trust, into why people trust charities. I think it's interesting to look at what exactly comes out of that research. This is a very scary list of why people trust charities and what areas are trusted better than anybody else. Sorry, Denise, I'm on your way. Now, the Charity Commission said that this works very well for charities because it's a 5.5 out of 10, that's okay. You look at the bottom though, government ministers, 3.7, MPs 3.6. Yeah, I'd have thought around Brexit time, I would have thought that's rather zero minus numbers. Lawyers aren't on there. Phil, what do you think lawyers might be on there?
There's another chart for lawyers.
Oh, right. Yeah. We're always trusted, aren't we?
Yeah.
What is scary about this is that charity is 5.5 out of 10. The bloke down the pub is trusted more. 5.7 out of 10. Man, woman in the street is actually trusted more than a charity. That's staggering. Very scary. But what factors do make charities trusted? It's about the money. It's back to business and commerciality. It's about transparent where the money goes, true to values. But look right at the bottom. Being entirely volunteer run is not a top priority for people trusting charities. And back again to people that trust a charity will donate more money to it and to volunteer for and to get involved with a charity. So trust is a very, very important word. The Charity Commission says that it's the most important external source of information for trustees. Yeah, I guess, along with Clapham Collinge briefings, of course. But things that are available out there are very wide-ranging. But trustees having to pick up on that. Not just knowing about it, but getting involved, coming along to briefings, getting involved with Charity Commission information. Very, very important. So the key is not just the knowledge being there, but tapping into it. Being a trustee is really a difficult job. People become trustees not because they want to take legal responsibility, but because they have a commitment to a mission, a purpose. All of you in the room, I'm sure, are that. But recruiting trustees is very important. How do you go about getting a new trustee for your board? Do you headhunt? Do you look for the kind of person that you think would fit well within your board? Do you want somebody that will challenge perceived ideas? So recruiting trustees is very, very important. But their responsibilities and their role is also key. Trustees don't always understand the legal responsibilities. In particular with unincorporated charities, they don't necessarily understand that they take financial risk, which is scary. And all of a sudden, you're into a much heavier legal situation. Governance sounds very boring. Governance is what the lawyers decide, oh yeah, you should have proper policies. Yeah, of course you should. And governance is vital because it starts from that governance as to the direction of a charity and what trustees do. When to take advice is another key area because it's another struggle. When do you talk to solicitors? When do you talk to surveyors? When do you talk to financial advisors? And trustees don't have to do everything, but knowing enough to know when they do need to ask advice from people. Succession planning is always very important for working out what is the future. The assumption is that your charity will be around in the future. The national charities, they're working on the basis that they will be here forever and ever and ever, which is why they put a lot of money into trying to get legacies, why they get a lot of response from that. One thing that will scare you is that we are approached by national charities offering to pay us to make wills for people that are going to make legacy donations in their wills to charities. I find that quite appalling really, but that's what happens. They're quite happy to pay solicitors to do a will for somebody so long as they know that they're going to be a beneficiary. It's not wrong with doing that, but it doesn't sit well with me. But it's what the national charities are doing. Back to competition. Policies, governance are very, very important to get the documents in place. I'm a great advocate of codes of conduct for trustees, and I know some of the charities in the room, you have codes of conduct, very, very important. Conflicts of interest, how to deal with things if they crop up. But the most important thing, I guess, and why you are here today, is the final line, why bother? Why bother? Because you're committed, and there's an awful lot that you'll get out from being involved with a charity. The rewards are great. Now, if anybody was going to go to sleep in the back row, this is the time to do it, because I need to talk to you a little bit about general data protection regulation and also Brexit, all at the same time. Now, that is particularly boring. Yeah, Simon, you're about to go to sleep now, I see that. Yeah, I know. GDPR came into operation last May. The world continued the day after. Nothing actually stopped. Like me, I guess you all got those pretty stupid emails from the world and his brother threatening never to talk to you unless you signed up and opted in. There was a lot of hysteria, a lot of panic stations about whether you should delete information, data about people. But the whole emphasis of GDPR was intended to be a journey, was intended to be let's progress on, let's change culture. And that continues. Nothing has changed with that. In fact, with Brexit, life is very easy with GDPR because if you comply with GDPR, you're going to be fine. Whatever happens, deal, no deal, Brexit, whatever's going to happen, I don't know what's going to happen, Prime Minister doesn't know what's going to happen. But GDPR is easy. It is European law, but that's going to be enshrined in UK law. If you comply with GDPR, you're going to be okay. Save that, if you start transferring data internationally, that's when problems come, and that's probably of any interest to anybody. They need to come to a masterclass on GDPR. But generally, complying with GDPR means what happens with Brexit is going to be fine. What's been happening, though, over the last month since GDPR came in is two distinct areas. The first is kind of the day-to-day breaches that are happening every day. The potential breaches, the almost breaches. The Information Commissioner's Office has recruited a host of new people to deal with the reports that have been coming in. A huge number of reports have been coming in to them of things that they didn't really want to have reported to them. But everyone's gone over the top in doing that. It's sending emails to the wrong person. It's sending posts to the wrong person. Clipping things together with a paperclip that should never have been clipped together with a paperclip. So those are, if you like, the day-to-day things that we all kind of nod because if you're not careful, it happens. It is, though, in danger of becoming the new area of compensation because there is the ability for anyone that is the wrong end of a breach to claim compensation, but not linked at all to any financial loss. Now, it may only be £50, £100 compensation, but the danger is it's going to turn into the new PPI, that there will be a lot of dare I say, ambulance chasing lawyers trying to get people to make claims. Now, with you guys, day to day, it's not going to make, fingers crossed, an awful lot of difference. But with some of the high profile breaches, it is going to make a huge amount of difference. Now, the Sheraton Hotel Group, 500 million customers have been subjected to a data breach. Now, if they have to pay out £100 per person, do the maths. It's an awful lot of money that could be paid out. Very recently, £44 million Google. There are big fines around for the big boys, and the ICO is targeting them. One interesting one is one that came just before GDPR came into operation. It's the Heathrow Airport one. And it's amazing how stupid people are with data. There was a data stick with information on it, and a member of staff lost it. Somebody just picked it up and read it at the library. They gave it to newspaper. Newspaper downloaded it, read it all, made great publicity out of it, and then gave it back to the company. And in the investigation, it turned out that 2% of their 6,500 workforce had had any training. 2%. It's mad, isn't it? That is what GDPR is aimed at stopping, the really stupid things. And the ICO Director of Investigation, talking about the Heathrow Airport situation, said that it's a boardroom issue, imperative that businesses, and for that read charities, have policies, procedures and training in place to minimise vulnerabilities of the personal information that has been entrusted to them. But you don't get an opportunity to say, well, we're a charity, it doesn't apply to us. It does. Just before GDPR came into operation, the ICO carried out a risk review of charities. And some of it was good, a lot of it was good, but most charities, they felt, had policies in place. But the problem was, they weren't communicating those policies to staff. There wasn't enough training. When somebody starts working, induction, annually, refreshers, a whole way of making sure that people and volunteers know about the responsibilities for data protection. Having business continuity plans. Yeah, even for charities. What will happen? Jamie in the front row here has worked fantastically hard for Clapham Collinge on a business continuity plan. And we needed to do that. We need to be ready. Not because of GDPR, because it made sense to be ready in case the worst case scenario happens. Document reporting procedures. When the ICO did their research, the charities were saying, well, everybody knew who they had to report the breach to, but it's never documented. They never bothered to tell that because everybody knew. Not good enough. Charities don't get that get out of jail free card. How to rate risks. If it's a really routine email that goes to the wrong place, the risk is not high. But charities weren't thinking in terms of that. And the biggest worry, the biggest concern that the ICO had, is that charities felt that they should retain information about donors, potential donors, anybody that was giving them money forever, without thinking about, is there a good reason? And that's one thing really just to resonate now, is to think, keeping data, keeping information, how long do you need to do that for? Don't forget, we've got coming on the horizon a new e-privacy regulation to replace PECA, the Privacy Electronic Communications regulations. That is going to be affected by Brexit. We don't know when that's going to come into operation, but that affects you guys an awful lot in terms of what you can do by email, the marketing that you do, that sits alongside GDPR.